Hey, what's up guys and gals? It's the Tyrant here. Happy Saturday to you and welcome to my weekly Q&A session. Oh, it's just so good to be here. You know, I know I tell you guys every week that you're my favorite crowd, even though I love all my subscribers, but you know, it really is true. I feel like, you know, you're just the base that I connect with the most. You know, you give great questions, great discussion, great topics. But interestingly enough, we had something stand out a little bit last week. So if you want to, I might put a link to the previous week's Q&A in the description below. And someone made sort of a nasty comment. And if you look at the comments from the newest first, I'm pretty sure it's the newest one or the one of the newest ones. It wasn't very nice. And so typically you guys know how I deal with trolls. I usually either delete the comment or if they're persistent, I block them from posting in more extreme situations. But I was kind of wondering if I should go a different route and do like a troll of the week type deal. I don't know if I should or not, just because I feel like in a way it's not just singling somebody out, but also promoting bad behavior. But at the same time, I've seen, you know, some of my colleagues do something similar to it. So I don't know if that's a good idea or not. Typically, I rely on you guys the most. You know, I get a lot of inspiration for the things that I do from week to week based on your feedback. So again, if you want to check this guy out in the comment section from last week's Q&A. So as you can see, I'm playing Slender the 8 Pages again. You guys seem to really enjoy that last week. I'm really enjoying it. I tried it again last night, and you're not going to believe this. 3 times in a row. 3 times in a row, I managed to get 7 out of the 8 pages. So I am determined at this point. I've got a new strategy down. We're going to test it out a couple of times tonight, see if it gets any better. But, you know, Slender Man, he just keeps sneaking up on me. Not much I can do about that. Pro tip, though, and I don't know how many of you know this. I might do a separate video detailing this a little bit later, but you know how, you know, you're walking around in the woods at night like we are right now, and your flashlight is limited. It will start dying down after a while until it eventually goes out. So one of the strategies they recommend you do is, at least for the first few pages, turn your flashlight off. What I found is that if you play it in daytime mode, you can actually get a really like natural feel of the map, like instinctively know where everything is rather than just looking at like a two-dimensional map. And you can do this without beating the game first. You know, normally daytime mode becomes available after you beat Slender the 8 Pages the first time around. But it turns out if you change something in the registry, which I've been able to do, daytime mode becomes an option without beating the game. So you can actually go back and learn the map so that you're not so dependent on the flashlight, which is really cool, and it's something I highly recommend. So I'll detail that in another video. But it's something cool just to keep in mind. Also, I want to let you know that people seem to really be, you know, all of you seem to really enjoy me live streaming Halo Combat Evolved. Last week on Legendary, some of you were a little concerned that I was playing with Bandana, which, again, keep in mind that it's been years since I have seriously played one of these games on Legendary, probably not since the guides. So I'm kind of getting back into it. Yes, I've played a little bit while I was making clips for some videos, but I haven't really played it seriously in quite some time, so I'm sort of getting the feel back for it. But since you guys did really seem to like that, starting this week, I'm going to be doing Halo 2 on Legendary, and I'll try doing a different Halo game every week until we get caught up. And I'm really looking forward to that too. And speaking of challenges, I don't know if you guys caught it, but this past week when I did my typical Wednesday review, I was reviewing the Buffalo Wild Wings Blazing Challenge, where it's 12 of their hottest wings, which is ghost pepper sauce, in 6 minutes or less. That's how much you have to eat. And I did this live on camera. Well, not live, but I did it on camera and added that to my Wednesday review. So you can catch that. People seem to really enjoy it. So if you want to catch that, it's on there for Wednesday. And before I get started today, I wanted to let you guys know that we received some not so great news about Halo 6 within the last couple of days. I'm not going to go into more details in this video, but I'm going to do a full video of it on Monday. So definitely tune in so you guys can get an update, because I'm sure this is something you're all going to want to hear. So that's all I've got for you today. Thanks for holding in there for the first 4.5 minutes. Let's go ahead and get started with the Q&A session. For those of you who don't know how this works, post your question in the comment section below. I select 12 every week. If I miss yours, I do apologize. You can follow me on Twitter. That is actually the most efficient way to send questions my way. Links to my Twitter, or a link to my Twitter page is in the description below. So if you're not following me now, definitely start following me on Twitter as well. But yeah, comment section works too. So without further ado, I know I've held you up for the last 5 minutes. Let's get started with this week's Q&A. Our first question comes from EV, Electronic Viper. And EV asks, if the squad mechanic were to return in Halo 6, what do you think about a customizable team? So what he's asking here is, what would you feel about being able to select different members of your team instead of it being a fixed or being fixed characters? I don't know, really. I think it's a good idea in theory, but the problem is that might kind of screw up the story a little bit, especially if each of the individual characters on your team has like a major part. And I hope they do, because one of the biggest issues we had with Halo 5 Guardians is they had the squad system, but none of the characters really made sense. You didn't really feel anything for them. They were just there. So really, I'm hoping that your squad system in Halo 6, if the mechanic returns, is more fine-tuned with the story and makes more sense, and all the characters are really fleshed out really well, and that each one has some sort of major contribution. But that's a good question, though, and I appreciate you asking that, Evie. Thank you. Our next question comes from Code Xanthium. I swear that sounds like a product for, do you have erectile dysfunction? Sorry. All right, so the question is, would you like a Halo game based during the Insurrectionist War as the Chief and go into the very beginning of the war? And if you do, why? No, plain and simple, because it's a war where you're just fighting humans, and that just doesn't feel like Halo to me. I'd rather play, if I'm going to do that, as sacrilegious as it may sound, Call of Duty would be the way that I go. Or Battlefield. How about that? Battlefield. But I don't think it would fit very well in Halo. But thanks, Code. I appreciate you. Our next question comes from Golden Elite 10. What's going on, dude? And Golden Elite 10 asks, do you think we'll fight the Banish in Halo 6? I think there's a possibility. I think that's going to really depend on how the expansion for Halo Wars 2 turns out, because they did say that the events of Halo Wars 2 would directly impact Halo 6, but we don't know what the events of Halo Wars 2 are going to be. We don't know if Atriox is going to be killed. I highly doubt it, because he seems like he's a really cool villain, probably the coolest villain they've come up with since Didact. And I have a feeling that they're going to utilize him more down the road. He's just too smart to die a stupid and pointless death. So I think that there is a chance, but I think that it's going to depend on how the events of their flood encounter in the upcoming expansion turn out. But yeah, I think that there's a good chance of them being there. So good question, Golden Elite. Thank you. Our next question comes from Schuster. Sorry, Malte Schustner. And Malte asks, if you could choose what 3 persons or fractions, yes, would you want to play in a Halo spin-off game? Well, this is a tough one. I don't think I've ever been asked this question before, so give me a second. I'm really partial to 1/2, but I also kind of like 1/3. You know what, though? At the end of the week, I'm a 7/8 kind of guy, so I hope that answers your question, Malta. Thank you. Our next question comes from your boy J2O. Always good to hear from you, bro. And your boy asked, do you think the AIs from Halo 5's ending will play a huge part in Halo 6? Keep up the good work. P.S. Show us your movies. Uh-oh. At some point, maybe, my friend. I actually want to remake them. But to answer your question, yes, absolutely. I don't know how big of a role they're going to play. As we've mentioned before, I think there's probably more towards this Cortana thing, or more to this Cortana thing than meets the eye. So I don't know if she's being controlled by maybe a digitized Didact or Mendicant Bias or whatever. I think the Didact's probably a better contender or at this point. But Roland sort of strikes me as someone who I can't really determine what side he's on. If you look at earlier in Halo 5, he loses his temper really quickly and gets ultra defensive when it comes to Cortana. But in the end, I'm still not entirely sure whose side he's on. It's implied that he's on the side of the UNSC, but is he really? What makes him different than all of the other AIs that pledged their allegiance to Cortana? So I think it's going to be really interesting how it plays out, and I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, I think that's going to be a heavy involvement from AIs, especially Cortana. So that's an excellent question, you boy. Thanks for stopping by, my friend. Our next question comes from Ethan the Amazing HD. Once again, he is not doing standard definition. So Ethan has, Mythic Tyrant is the spirit of fire and everything from Halo Wars 2 going to be in Halo 6. So this kind of is a throwback to the earlier question. In short, I think that we are going to see, it's not that I think, we're going to see a crossover between Halo Wars 2 and Halo 6, or as it's been implied by 343, unless they, change their minds. I think that there's a big chance that we're finally going to see those two universes merge together. I think it's long overdue. They've been separate for too long, and there's just too much in Halo Wars 2 to be expanded upon in the next major Halo game, especially the Flood. I think that's going to be another factor in Halo 6. But yeah, I think we could see the Spirit of Fire, Spartan Jerome, and Red Team, and even possibly Atriox. So yeah, I can't wait to see what they have in store, and I'm really looking forward to it. So good question, Ethan. Thank you. Our next question comes from Luke in Gold as opposed to Luke in Bronze. What's going on, Luke? He actually asked our star question last week, so welcome back. And Luke asks, you see a lot of people talking about playable elites returning, but how do you think that would work in terms of Spartan abilities? And would it be too strange to be performed by an elite? So he's talking about like thruster packs and stuff like that. Honestly, no. If you look closely at the enemies in Halo 5 Guardians, they have thruster packs. Especially if you look at the mission blue team, you see the elites jumping up on higher ledges, you see jackals doing the same thing, or ranger jackals. They already have abilities that basically play in sync to a thruster pack, so I don't see this being as big of a stretch from it. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure all these abilities from Halo 5 are going to make it into Halo 6. Personally, I was a huge fan of the ground pound ability and a lot of the thruster abilities. It'd be interesting to see an elite do that, but it could be also overpowered to have them do that in campaign as well. Maybe that's just a multiplayer thing, but in all seriousness, I don't know that we're going to see elites return in multiplayer unless it's like an invasion game type, in which case you could balance them differently anyway, just because there was such an uproar about them in Halo 3. So that's a good question and a good thing to think about. I appreciate that, Luke. Thank you for stopping by, my friend. Our next question comes from the Shadow King. And the Shadow King asked, how would you feel about playable brutes since they're coming in big against, or they're coming in, big time in the universe again with Halo Wars 2 and all that stuff? What do I think? Honestly, I think that's a bad idea. I hate to rain on your parade on that one. Brutes are just overall bigger. They're bulkier. I just don't see how you could really balance them out without like physically changing every aspect of them, because even if they're smaller in height, they're still bulkier and easier to hit. So if you're a brute, I feel like it would be just too easy to hit you. Again, unless you're going through some type of invasion playlist where things can be balanced differently, like maybe brutes are just stronger or can jump higher and farther or whatever. But in terms of like standard multiplayer, I can't really see brutes working out. But it's an interesting concept to think about, Shadow, and I appreciate that. Our next question comes from Happy Maniac. Dude, I have to ask you a question. Do you know the Batman? Do you want to kill the Batman? So Happy Maniac asks, do you think Halo 6 will be rated teen or mature? This is a pretty cool question. So it seems like 343 is trying to lean more towards the teen area just because it expands their audience, but it depends on how the story is going to go, because if it's ultra tragic or contains too much violence or any sort of nudity like naked Cortana, they're going to have to make it M for mature. Obviously, if you look at some of the earlier games, there's more blood, specifically when in Halo Combat Evolved, but I feel like they've been reducing that slowly over time. So it's hard to really pinpoint exactly what makes a game mature versus not. When we saw Halo 3 first being made, they had a vid-doc showing a brute ripping the arms off of a Marine. And I was like, well, you're rating it M for mature anyway. I guess technically you could do that, but it also doesn't fit with the style of Halo. So it really just depends on how the story is going to play out and what the story contains. I know that if they want a broader audience, they're going to have to make it teen, but if they want to hold on to more legacy Halo fans, they're going to have to rate it M for mature. So that's a cool question. I really appreciate that one, Happy Maniac. Thank you, and stay happy, my friend. Our next question comes from Louise Peak. And Louise Peak asks, do you think that custom games should give XP and RP rather than just medals? Plain and simple, no, I don't, because it's too easy to exploit. It's too easy for people just to get into a custom game and try to soup up their XP. You know, I know that maybe you wouldn't do that, and a lot of my people here in the Q&A wouldn't do that, but I know a lot of people who would. And it would be cheating. It wouldn't be like earning your XP, you know, especially since, you know, certain points you can actually cash in for Rex and whatnot. I think that's what she meant by RP was rec points. And it just, especially if you're going to end up using those in matchmaking, then it tilts too much in your favor. So no, I don't think that should ever be the case. Custom games should just be strictly for fun. So I hope that answers your question. Hope that didn't disappoint you too much, Louise, but it's a great question. Thanks for stopping by. Our next question comes from Harambee. He has been haunting my site for a while now, but let me tell you, I couldn't be happier. Welcome back, Harambee. And Harambee asks, and by the way, he also is the guy every week who actually puts timestamps for the questions for you guys. So give him a hand. You know, he's a great contributor here, and we're lucky to have him. So Harambee asks, when Chief dies, do you think 343 will go backwards for spinoffs? That's what I'm hoping for. I don't want them to go too much forward because I feel like things have gotten so chaotic in the Halo universe at this point and a little overly magical with the, you know, warping in Prometheans and stuff. I would rather see them go back to basics. And there's so much lore leading up to this point, you know. Even if you're talking, you could be talking about prior to Halo Combat Evolved, because remember, the Master Chief went on a ton of missions with Blue Team against the Covenant. Whether you're talking about things that took place between the games, whether you're talking about between Halo Combat Evolved and Halo 2 and Halo 3, or you're talking about the things that happened between 3 and 4, which was 4 years. You know, that's a pretty big time gap. They have a lot of material they can work off of, and personally, I think it would give them a chance to flush out a lot of the old characters, introduce some new characters, and just further expand upon the universe without writing a bunch of books and doing a bunch of movies. So that's a great question, Harambee, and I really hope they take some of that to heart. And our final question of the week comes from Captain Pancakes. I think Sergeant Waffles wants a word with you, sir. And Captain Pancakes asks, there are talks that Noble 6 will replace the Master Chief when the Chief dies, and that Noble 6 isn't really dead. What are your thoughts on that? This is an excellent question, and I've heard this theory before. So the theory is that Noble 6, who was the character that you played in Halo Reach, isn't really dead. And, you know, there is enough evidence to support it, you know, when you stop and think about it. So we never actually see Noble 6 die. You know, we see him getting overwhelmed in probably one of the most epic and badass Halo fatalities ever, but we never see him actually get killed. What we do see is him getting overwhelmed by elites, then it cuts to his helmet being on the ground after Reach was glassed. It's implied that he was killed in combat, but it never actually says it, because you know what they say. Spartans never die. They only go missing in action. So Noble 6 is only missing, and actually June survived that conflict too. So I've heard this theory before too. You know, interestingly enough, Noble 6 is the only other Spartan out there, aside from the Master Chief, who is rated as hyper-lethal. They are the two deadliest Spartans ever created, even stronger than Jerome from Red Team. So, and Bungie actually did this on purpose from what I understand. So I'm actually going to read this straight from the wiki. And it says, even though generally the most widely accepted canon by the fans is that Noble 6 died on August 30th at the hands of the Sangheili, Bungie has never stated either way the exact date of Noble 6's death, which could have been any point between August 30th, 2552 and July 7th, 2589. Bungie most likely did this to leave the way Noble 6 died up to the imagination of the player. So having said that, even though it's implied that Noble 6 died, is it possible that they could bring him back? Sure. You know, if 343 has taught me anything at this point, they can pull any magic out, or any rabbit out of a hat. They brought Cortana back in Halo 4. They brought the Didac back in canon after the events of Halo 4, despite having a grenade shoved into his chest and pushed off a platform into a slip space hole. So, I mean, is it possible? Yes. Is there reason to bring him back? possibly just because he's as badass as the Master Chief, and I think it's time to retire the Chief after Halo 6, and I honestly believe that's what they're going to be doing, in the way of not actual retirement, but in some sort of self-sacrifice to save Cortana and the universe, that sort of thing. But the reason why I personally am doubting it is because Noble 6, in terms of just overall Halo canon, if you're just looking at the games on the surface, isn't really a big part of it. We don't really know that much about Noble 6, aside from the fact that he was as dangerous as the Chief, and even then, we don't really see that demonstrated so well in Halo Reach, except the very end of the game. In terms of who would replace the Chief, I feel like a better successor would be Jerome, just because they've brought him back into the canon at this point with Halo Wars 2, and you see him just being this ultra badass in the same game. You know, up there, you know, doing everything he did in the Covenant ship, and just stuff that you would only see John do or Master Chief in previous titles. I feel like that's not a coincidence, that we're going to be seeing a lot more of Spartan Jerome, or that he's going to play a bigger role in the universe. Noble 6 hasn't been brought around since the days of Halo Reach, and if you're doing it simply by years in terms of when the games were released, it's been 7 years since we've even, you know, met up with Mobile Team at all. I think if we have a higher chance of seeing any of Reach's Spartans at all, it's going to be June, if anybody. But it's an interesting concept, and personally, I like to just think that, yes, Noble 6 survived that encounter. He kicked those elites in the balls, and that's how he got away. Shoved a grenade in their mandibles, you know what I'm saying? So I like to think that he's alive somewhere out there, but that, you know, he's just kind of backing off and doing his own thing, not really by the rules of the UNSC, but, you know, formed his own little ragtag team or whatever, and they're handling the Covenant War on their own terms. I think that I'd like to stick with that one. I know no one's ever said that anywhere. It's not listed anywhere. But it's something I like to sort of keep in the back of my mind. So it's an excellent question, and it's something that I want you guys to ponder too. Do you think Noble 6 is alive? If he is, do you honestly think that he might come back to the Halo universe? Because that does wrap up this week's Q&A, so I want you to let me know in the comments below what you think about Noble 6. Also, leave your questions in the comments below, or you can hit me up on Twitter so you can get that personal connection going. A link to my Twitter page, as I mentioned before, can be found in the description below. And if you like this video, hit that subscribe button for more awesome content every single day right here on MythicTyrant.com. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow for our live stream of Halo 2 on Legendary. Thanks so much for watching, guys and gals. I hope you have an excellent weekend. It's always an honor being here with you. I'll catch you all right back here next time. And as always, I'm the Tyrant, signing off.